let's talk about something really fascinating and honestly pretty complex happening inside China. It's a country with a massive Muslim population, but it's a story of one faith and two very, very different faiths. Okay, so get this. China has over 20 million Muslims, but the way the government treats them is anything but uniform. And that brings us to the core puzzle of this whole thing. Why are the two biggest Muslim groups, the Hui and the Uyghurs, living in completely different worlds? All right, so first up, let's meet our two main groups. On one side, you have the Hui. They're ethnically Chinese. They speak Chinese, and they live all over the country, pretty much mixed in with the Han majority. Then you have the Uyghurs. They're a Turkic people with their own unique language and culture, and they're almost all located in one region in the far west, Xinjiang. Now remember these two key differences, ethnicity and geography, because, as we're about to see, they are everything in this story. Now, you might think it's always been this way, this huge divide, but actually, no. To really get what's happening today, we gotta rewind the clock, because for a long time, their histories were really deeply intertwined. And this timeline, it really paints a picture of that shared history. Back in 1912, they were both recognized as equal citizens, and they suffered together during the chaos of the Cultural Revolution. I mean, it didn't matter if you were Hui or Uyghur. Your mosque was a target for the Red Guards. And then, when things opened up in 1979, both communities got to enjoy a new wave of religious freedom. For decades, their faiths were basically linked. But somewhere along the way, that shared path, well, it split hard. And today, the situation couldn't be more different. What we're seeing now is a tale of two policies, and it's created this jarring contrast in how you're allowed to live out your faith. And we're not talking about small things here. These differences hit the very core of daily life. Just look at this. A Hui person working for the government can fast during Ramadan. A Uyghur person in the exact same job? Forbidden. A Hui woman can wear a veil if she chooses. For a Uyghur woman, it's banned or heavily discouraged. Getting permission to go on the Hajj pilgrimage is actually getting easier for the Hui, while for Uyghurs, it's become next to impossible. It's like there are two different rule books. And if you want a perfect example of this double standard, look no further than education. There's a national law against religious education for kids, but for many Hui communities, the authorities kind of just look the other way. Meanwhile, in the Uyghur homeland of Xinjiang, that exact same law is enforced with an iron fist. Same law, totally opposite application. So what is going on here? Why the huge difference? If it's not simply about being Muslim, then what is it really about? Well, the answer seems to be a mix of geography, ethnic identity, and, frankly, political fear. And this quote right here just spells it out. The government's actions aren't really about Islam as a religion. They're about politics. The one word that changes everything is separatism. The state's biggest fear isn't someone's devotion to their faith. It's a political movement that could challenge national unity. So let's try to see this from Beijing's perspective for just a second. When they look at Xinjiang, they don't just see Muslims. They see a Turkic people, not Han Chinese, all concentrated in one strategic border region. They see a population with its own language, its own culture, and a history of separatist movements that wanted to create an independent country called East Turkestan. To the government, that combination looks like a major political threat. Okay, this story from 1989 is the perfect illustration. Get this, a book comes out that insults Islam. Hui Muslims are outraged and they protest, pretty violently in some cases. But look what the government does. They actually protect the protesters, they ban the book, burn it publicly, and arrest the authors. Why? Because the Hui were seen as being loyal to China. Their anger was religious, not political. Now, just try to imagine a Uyghur protest being handled with that kind of support. It's just unimaginable. Okay, so let's pull all these threads together. What does this all really mean? These two totally different paths, they reveal a very clear, very deliberate logic behind the state's actions, a logic that puts political control above absolutely everything else. And this logic, it actually has an official name, sinicization. It's the state policy of basically absorbing non-Han groups into the dominant Han culture. And while you see this policy elsewhere, listen to how the language changes when they talk about Xinjiang. Officials there have said that the sinicization of Islam is inevitable. It's framed as something that must happen to guarantee political loyalty. So here it is, the bottom line. The critical distinction the government is making isn't between a devout Muslim and a less devout one. It's between a group they see as politically harmless and integrated, the Uyghurs, and a group they see as having a separate ethnic identity that could potentially fuel a drive for independence, the Uyghurs. And that leaves us with a huge, lingering question, doesn't it? Can a government really try to separate a people's faith from their culture and identity like this? Is this policy of drawing a line between good and bad Islam a sustainable way to build a unified country, or is it actually planting the seeds for even deeper, more painful divisions down the road? That's something only time will tell.